Hello, and welcome back to the cabin. It's been a few days. Of course, we have our country foods with us in the set. We've got some nice dried mushrooms of different varieties. My lemon tree is doing really well. Got a little plant light on it. And we've got our dried meats, moose and deer jerkies, yams, currants, cranberries. These are large rose hips. I've got some smaller ones here. Makes great tea. We're going to have some tea. We've got some smoked fish. Very good. Now, today's reading is Book 2, In Search of the Little Green Valley. Now, this book, I put a lot of work into this book. I wrote this book actually first out of the three. But then I decided I need to go back and give the forward story that gets to this book. And so that's why this is now Book 2. But originally it was my first book in this series, that is. The tea is hot and ready. Oh, it's dark today. And we've cleansed and smudged the area and ourselves. We've had a little snack, and now we have some tea. I put a little honey in my cup. When I write, I tend to scribble everywhere. I have things written here, John Muir, things that little quotes I do for myself, quotes by Rudyard Kipling, Dick Prenneke. I have quotes from Jim and Ted Baird in here. I have all kinds of things that people say written down because I chuckle when I reread them and I think of that person. And it's just a way that I respect these people, the travels that they've taken, the places they've gone. Tough to paddle, tough to pole, tough to wade, unthinkable to portage. So you grunt it out as best you can. And that was Northern Scavenger on his unforgettable 35-day wilderness expedition in Canada's Big Land. Documentary of Newfoundland and Labrador from last year. I have lists of books that I have or want to get. One day I'm going to do a video about my bookshelf and the books that I read, bits of poetry, book ideas, and of course the history of my family and the Gwich'in Nation. So these are things that I like to write down and then I remember, and it encourages me and inspires me. Now let's start with Book 2, Searching for the Little Green Valley. And this is On the Trail. Winter has been mild with very little snow, and what snow there is melted away leaving me thinking of spring. The old portage trails are getting harder to see. They're not getting used as much these days. And this canoe is heavy. Working my way through the thick brush and the soon-to-be berry bushes, following the ancient tree blazes that mark the old portage trails. Memories guide me only so far. I'm taking it all in, and writing and drawing, and a rough map with a few illustrations. I'll probably never roam this way again. There's a special valley with mountains and rocky bluffs where I'll build a cabin, a home. The hike into the back country gives me plenty of time to go over the written plans and cabin design. I've written down plans for food storage, hunting, fishing, and foraging. It's really important to have a plan and be prepared. But it's also important to be flexible, because you never know what's around the next corner. Could be a berry feasting bear that you've startled on your path. Could be a deer standing in a clearing and it becomes your dinner and food stores for the season. That's what's so great about backcountry adventures. You feel alive. Your senses are on high alert, and yet you feel calm and at home. I fully understand how those who came before me felt living on the land. It's a sense of nature's gift all around you. It's in everything from trees to rocks, the air, the flowers, and all creatures, great and small. There's an angelic energy as I stop for a rest amongst a thick forest of poplar and pine. A slight breeze sways sun-speckled branches as light slips here and there like dancing sprites. I'll take the time. There's no hurry. I'm in God's cathedral. Slipping into sleep came easy. A dream world of sounds and smells that lulled me into comfort, calm, and rest. Birds singing their pre-spring songs, squirrels jumping from tree to tree, water flow from a nearby creek, swollen from the early melt. Stoked a little fire and put on a pot of water for tea. I've got some bush bannock and deer jerky, and that'll go good with my tea. This is a great spot to set up camp for the night or two. I'll forage some greens and mushrooms and berries, and maybe catch a fish, a brook trout. It feels great to not be in a hurry. No schedule, no time frame. I'm retraining my brain that time is of no consequence. Eat when I'm hungry, sleep when I'm tired. It's all new and exciting. A big tug on the rod and a few turns of the reel and a beautiful pink-bellied speckled rainbow trout, about 2 pounds. That'll go great on the fire with some wild onions and mushrooms, and of course tea. I tossed the hook in again, not expecting another fish. It was just the relaxation of the motion and mindset. And just like that, I had another fish, a much larger lake trout. I'll put it on a smoker and eat it along the trail as I go. Otherwise, I would have just let it go. It's been 2 restful sleeps and a day and a half of watching insects catching fish and fish catching insects, listening to Le Forêt, long midday naps that leave me dreamy and dozy, I'm rested and ready to continue on the trail. This canoe is still heavy, but the path is clear and slowly sloping down this small valley. The end of this portage is just ahead of me. Making camp for the night on the edge of the path near shore. Tomorrow's a day of paddling and reflecting. The further I go into the backcountry, the more I feel like myself. The words of poetry and stories and songs want to come out of the end of my pen. Finding myself means I can now put pen to paper and share these adventures of the trail. If you don't know by now, it's all about leaving the stress behind. The demands and responsibilities of a compromised life. Obligations met with love and care, and yet there's guilt for unsaid words. I will retrain my brain. It's okay to not feel guilty and to love your new freedom, your new self-love, and allowing your adventurous side to make the decisions. The day is closing and I'll need more firewood for the night. Another starry-filled night. In the woods, Le Forêt, another night of rest with nature in all her glory. Clear night skies leave dancing stars, blinking planets, and heavenly orbs. I'm creating a space in my mind and in my memory, always grateful for the majesty that surrounds and heals. A space that I can go to anytime I need to remember that inner peace and the healing life waters. Very good. Morning came early like it usually does, with the bright smile of sunrise and the rumbles of my tummy wanting morning tea and smoked fish. A quick pack-up of the canoe and a pocket of smoked fish and a flask of tea, I set off across the lake towards a small dark spot on the other side where another creek flowed. It meant another portage, but it would be worth it. Ever closer to the green valley where the cabin would be built. Another adventure on the trail. Rowing the lake was smooth and uneventful, but that's a good thing. The mouth of the creek was narrow and rocky with a clear path upshore and into the trees. Many have portaged here, but a long time ago. This canoe was heavy. A short trail to the clearing near the creek and put the canoe back in the water. The water was a little high with fallen trees hanging across my canoe's path, ducking and bending to miss the low branches and widowmakers. Some parts the paddle worked out small rapids, but mostly the water was calm, easy flowing, and taking me the direction that I wanted to go. Here and there I strayed to watch a moose cow with last year's spring calf, and a mother black bear with her 2 cubs walking the shoreline. It was past midday and the sun was almost in my face, and I was feeling my age and I wanted a nap. Around the next bend came an open meadow with an old stone fire ring. I almost thought I saw many teepees standing tall around this stone fire ring in the meadow. It was an illusion. Spirits, maybe. Maybe a ghost village from long ago. There and gone in a flash, foggy and not real, but it could have been. After all, I am on an ancient trail that was taken by many for many, many years. I felt privileged to have seen the teepee village. Real or not, it didn't matter. I will camp here for a night or two as winter turns to spring and the wildflowers are pushing up their colors and aromas. A good day to pull the canoe ashore. It's time for a hot cup of tea with some bush bannock, smoked fish, and later a bit of dried deer meat jerky. As the sun goes behind the mountain, the air cools, and I stoke the fire and I make more tea. Chapter 2, Spirits Along the Trail. Tonight I've set up a lean-to shelter. The wind is cold and it feels like snow. I've collected plenty of wood, keeping it dry under the lean-to. And I've been lucky lately with good weather and warm nights. No stars tonight. The sky is overcast with clouds and light rain mists the air, almost snow. It's going to be a long night. Morning couldn't come soon enough, and with it warmth and light that the night lacked. The sky had cleared and the air was crisp and fresh. Steam rolled off the meadow and through the trees in the distance. It was magical, and I felt like I could thrive here. I spent most of the morning walking the edge of the meadow, picking herbs and greens and a few old mushrooms. It was a warm pocket microcosm, and I understood why people gathered here seasonally. An ancient place of spirits. Drumming and singing could be heard just before dusk. It continued into the night and lulled me to sleep. I woke once to stoke the fire and rub my eyes when I saw some elders around the glow of the fire, and then they were gone. I felt privileged. The elders might have been sent to guide me. It was a dream maybe, but I still felt privileged. Morning came too early. A relaxing day foraging and maybe catch a fish or two. Tomorrow needed food stores for the trail ahead. Not much to forage, but I caught 3 trout. I'll have to make another little smoker to preserve the fish for the trail. The smell of fish on the open fire and smoked fish clouded this little camp. The area was alive again, the old ways. I felt happy to be alive. Leaving this place will be hard, but I must continue my path, not knowing if I will ever pass this way again. These memories, sights, and senses will be remembered, and in some way I will leave a piece of my spirit here amongst all the others that came before me and those who come after. When I woke as the sun came up, no fire, no tea this morning. A bit of smoked fish and the paddling began. A quiet exit from a sacred place. I won't look back for fear that I might never leave. It's locked in my memories as each paddle takes me further away. Hours turn into days and the creek has become my home. A different camp each night and pushing forward each day. Cups of hot tea and dry smoked fish kept me alive with bits of jerky and dry cranberries from last year. The little green valley is not far, but I won't rush my adventure and risk missing each step along the way. been a long day of paddling as the valley opens up before me and the creek widens and slows. I pull ashore to take it all in. It's been many years since my last visit to this area. This is the Little Green Valley. I was younger, the trees are much bigger, and the water is clear like I remembered. On one side, the valley opened to a wide meadow at the base of the mountains, and the other side, rock ledges formed from erosion and hung over the creek. The creek flowed into a small lake where trout grew to huge sizes. Enough fish to smoke and dry for storage and winter treats. And deer are everywhere along the tree line. And there's a picture here of her little lean-to. Very simply made, gave her shelter from the weather and the sun. Fire and shelter first. A nice flat clearing not too far from the tree line and not too close to the creek or lake in case of flooding. And not too far from watching animals coming to the water to drink. The fire's going good, water boiled for tea, and the lean-to is set up for the night. For the next many nights, until the cabin takes shape. I'm not in a hurry. I'm here, and the rest will be day-to-day life. A more permanent shelter, wood stores, food stores, and hunting. And when she talks about stores, she's talking about how she would put everything in storage. So she's preparing for a long stay. It doesn't mean she went to the store. It's what she's saved, stored. A smokehouse and a big wooden chair for relaxing and bird watching, and of course a garden. Ducks nestling along the lake shore leave their eggs for me when they take to the water. I thank them by only taking an egg from a few nests. Wild wheat flour mixed with dry powdered nettles and dry powdered greens makes a delicious green bush bannock. There are days filled with cutting and peeling small logs. The work is hard and rewarding. Each day brings the nosy neighbors in the form of squirrels and chirping birds, watching my work and meal times, hoping for bannock crumbs, which I toss at them if it's too old and dry. I'm now 10 small logs high and planning the roof slope. I've decided it will be a lean-to sloped roof, and the floor is dug and tamped down, and I have just enough grass to weave covers for the 3 small windows. One on each side and a small window beside the door. Big enough to look out, but too small for a bear to get in. Once the roof is finished, I'll cut out where the stone fireplace will be. Each day brings its own rewards, and each night my well-earned rest comes easy. Soon, I'll move into the cabin. My father would be proud. After all, he was my teacher. And in the first book, she talks about her father and how he worked with the French voyageurs and learned how to make cabins. And that's where she learned it from as a child, as a young person too. I've hurt my hand. I fell on my wrist and twisted it into a sprain. I'll take today off. Light duties around camp and plenty of tea and smoked fish and pemmican. I'll gather willow for a woodshed wigwam. Another project to keep me busy and to keep wood dry for the eventual winter. My days are filled with work and rest. No hurry, but I do have a bit of a schedule. I feel alive. I don't want to say words like happy and fulfilled. Those are familiar feelings that keep me going and brought me here. I'm longing for the simpler life and getting here in one piece instead of pieces. Poetry and tales swirling around my head. I'll put to paper someday soon. And she's got a picture here of the cabin, but she later changes the roof design because on her own she couldn't do a full roof. She says here, I might make it a lean-to roof, and she does. Another day hauling stones for the fireplace. After hurting my hand the other day, I'll be a little more careful. There's been many animals that come by camp. Some stay a while and watch me working or foraging, like the cheeky squirrels. Little Swiss, tamia, also known as chipmunk, and birds of all types. Once I settle in, I'll have plenty of bird watching time and identify some of the regulars and the seasonals. These little creatures have become my friends, and I wake each day with their songs. I'm careful not to leave any food out. Clean table, clean floors. Otherwise, I've got mice and squirrels running around for crumbs. Even the birds will fly in for a crumb on the table. And I don't want them to think I'll feed them every day. This is chapter 4, Count with Bears. So there's her wood store that she later uses for smoking, and another small smokehouse. She dries greens and berries and meat and fish. I love that. The cabin is cozy and warm and loving. My first couple sleeps inside had me tossing a bit. I couldn't see the stars. I couldn't feel the wind and hear the forest. An adjustment to indoors. I spent most days outside in the wilds, foraging and drying for winter stores, hunting rabbits and fishing trout at the mouth of the lake. My little smoker goes daily and is almost too small now. If I get a deer or a moose, I'll need a bigger smoker. There's almost enough smoke-dried fish for winter stores, and I've collected rose hips and herbs and berries all year, thinking of the winter stores. I've built some small wooden boxes to store them in, and baskets. Different weave baskets, some with birch bark, some with grass. They will hang in the cabin where it's dry, warm, and away from animals. Time for a hot cup of tea. I slipped into a short nap with the birds singing in the background. It was a warm day, and the reeds that covered the windows had flies bouncing as the breeze moved through where I pulled it back for airflow. I didn't cook in the cabin this time of year, so there was little to attract flies and other pests. It had been months since I put boots on my feet. Moccasins if I go into La Forêt, but around camp, I'm soaking in Mother Earth through my feet and hands. I fall into a deep sleep and wake to my own snoring. Or was it? Something or someone is outside in camp near the cabin. I did a video about this too. It was bear or Sasquatch. At first I could hear the tin wash basin being bounced around on the ground. Then I could hear heavy breathing and snorting. It's a bear! I must protect camp and the food stores, mostly hanging in baskets from the cabin rafters. I had to stand my ground if we were to respect each other and share this green valley together in peace. By the time I opened the cabin door, he was gone. My knees were shaking and relief washed over me. I didn't want a confrontation. I thought I could just bang these two old pots together, yelling as well as I could. My throat was dry, and I picked up the wash basin and looked around camp and beyond. Maybe the smokers still smelled like fish. Maybe that old bear crossed this way every month or two, or a year or two. Maybe he'll be back. I'll be a little more careful until we have our boundaries established. No bear scat in the area, and that's a good sign. Life continues to meander like the little creek. A comfort zone that comes from Mother Nature herself. A cup of tea is needed and a bit of smoked fish with wild asparagus. Almost time to get the cabin fire going. Nights are cool, almost chilly in the little green valley. I'll do some more writing tonight and contemplate on the next bear encounter. I'll keep a knife or two on my belt just in case, and of course my multi-tool. Misty fog covered the lake's surface. Cool air through the night is fighting the temperature of the water. I stare in awe as the picture worthy of the finest art gallery that is my daily morning view. The summer has aged everything and hints that winter is not far away. The days are not as long as they were in the past few months. It's still hot during the day, but much cooler at night. I feel ready for winter, but I'm still enjoying summer and all that comes with warm days, flowers blooming, their sweet scent lofting in the breeze. Let's have some more tea. Paddling around, chapter 5. A cool swim in the lake has me refreshed and energized. I'll explore around the lake by canoe. A short day adventure of foraging and learning my way around the lake. I've been watching deer at the water's edge all summer. I see their silhouettes at dusk, a dark cutout against the last light of day. I'll be looking for signs in the bush that will help me for hunting, like nibbled willow branches, droppings, and bed-down spots in the long grass, and of course foraging. My hand-woven basket is heavy with wild mushrooms, rose hips, sorrel, wild onions, and a small bunch of pine nuts from pine cones that the squirrels haven't picked out yet. I only take what I need, a little to eat now and the coming days, and a bit for drying and storing. So many little mystical places on this lake. I just pulled onto shore directly across from camp. Wild blueberries on low bushes are plentiful. And near water's edge are small bushes of cranberries, saskatoons, And there's even some cloudberries that sing out in a bright yellow hue. The Saskatoon berries are a plump purple, and I can't help but eat them as I'm picking them with both hands. One handful for the basket and one to my mouth. I'm sure my teeth and tongue are purple blue. Time for a sip of tea from the flask and maybe a short nap. Time is of no matter. My nap is ended with the snap of a twig. I slowly roll over to see 5 deer, 2 females and 3 young'uns. They're grazing wildflowers and new shoots of grass. I'm of no concern to them. I watch as they move across the meadow towards the creek. Too early for fall hunting, but I'll be back when the season is right. I'll need meat for drying and smoking for winter stores. I'll only harvest what I need. Time to head back across the lake to the camp and home. I see the little cabin across the lake and it calls to me. It's good to get the paddle wet. I'll take more time on the lake trips before winter's cold and ice arrives. Paddling around the lake to forage and hunt rabbits gives me a sense of accomplishment and yet humbles me to the vastness of the wilds. The water enjoys the paddle, a happy calm ripples across the water, and I hear the sacred drums. With each stroke and dip, the rhythm's tempo keeps time with the drums and takes my memory and spirit to another place and time, a memory in my DNA that's joined by threads and ribbons and wakes me from an ancient sleep. I follow the spirits as they weave through Le Forêt, sounds of laughter and life, and the paddle pulls me to shore. Chapter 6, Spirits of Past Seasons. My focus is pulled to a small circle of people gathered with their beads, horsehair, and hides. Elder women with weathered, dark faces, smiling and laughing with children and young women, all teaching each other their skills and ways. Some are weaving berry baskets while others are beating bits of moose hide for moccasins. One elder grandmother was twisting and wrapping sage and cedar bundles for ceremony and cleansing. The smoke of buffalo sage filled the air with healing, and it washed over me as I sat at the edge of this vision, merely a spectator, watching through the fog. It was a moment in time, imprinted in the water, soil, air, everywhere. It flowed through every blade of grass, every flower, every tree, an undeniable energy. The animals knew it. They're part of it, the life force of God and nature. It flowed up through my bare feet and out through my fingertips, swirling around in my brain with affection and wonder. It feels great to be alive and well with nature and her surprises. It's as close to heaven on earth as one can get, and I'll drink it in as much as possible. Daily blessings, one day at a time, and never taking it all for granted, and thankful to be part of the great circle of life. She's talking here about different food preservation of foods. These visions are appearing more often. I will be more careful with the wild mushrooms. She laughs at herself. Excuse me. Eating makes my throat dry. Country food, or wild natural food, is seasonal and storable. It takes planning and hard work, but I turn that work into a foraging adventure or a hunting or hiking adventure. Take your time, take in your surroundings. Once you know the greens and the fungi, nuts, berries, etc., you learn that each season brings its own rewards. She talks here about the tree blazes that she followed on the trail to get there, and although the trail was overgrown sometimes, she still could see the ancient blazes. Decades later, if the tree is still standing, you'll still see the old blaze and be able to find the trail. Follow the blazed trees to stay on the right path. Animals have their ranges. The predators follow the prey, and water brings them together. Each season brings visitors on their ancestral trails, animals, spirits, and memories. Every trail has a story, and every life has a song. And here's the little cabin with the lean-to roof. Very nice. Birch bark and small twigs makes really good tinder to start a fire. Birch bark, gather it when you can and keep it dry. Always keep some in your pockets, and bits of old bird nests and lichen for easy fire start. Okay, good advice. I like how she's got the wood stored here, even at the back of the cabin. It's handy. Her chair, table, hot cup of tea. Very nice. As the paddle pulls me along, I continue to enjoy my surroundings, my sanctuary, and I can still hear the drums keeping rhythm with each paddle. Dip, dip, dipping. As the cabin comes into focus, the bird songs welcome me home, and I pull the cabin on shore. As my feet feel familiar ground and my ankles steadied, a relaxed, warm calm came over me. Time for a good hot cup of tea. The fire was cold, but with just a couple strikes of the flint, I had a coal, then flames. Charcoal will give you a coal faster than wood. Then just add kindling and a couple of split logs. Wild swimming, but not too deep. A quick wash, a rinse, and I'm ready for a good night's sleep. That's got to be one of my favorite smells, wood burning on the campfire. And it goes so well with my cup of tea. The days are getting shorter and the nights a bit cooler, and fall is on its way. I see trees far off on the mountain turning orange and yellow, and soon these trees here will begin to change color in a wave across the forest, amongst the pines and birch, larch and elm, and oak. I see, and maple. Of color sung, a color song sung for our eyes brings beaming smiles and long, long Indian summer days that are still sunny and warm. But slowly the days get shorter. and all life is preparing for the big freeze and the long sleep of a cozy winter's nap. She says there was fresh bear tracks near the cabin. He was just passing through the area, probably still curious if I was still here. No scat, just tracks. One day we'll meet, but keep our distance and respect our paths crossing. Chapter 7, Getting Ready for Winter. It's a wonder of nature. Instincts when animals choose a sanctuary. Let me read that again. It's a wonder of natural instincts when animals choose a sanctuary. A safe place for birds to sing, find a mate, make a nest, lay eggs, and raise their chicks. Small animals like mice and squirrels and weasels follow suit, which brings in predators like coyotes, wolves, and even bears, and even a cougar now and again. It takes a whole lot of creatures to make this circle of life go round and round. Each season has its abundance. It's about drive and perseverance. Sure, I have my laid-back days, even lazy days, but most days there's plenty of things to do. An underweight fox has been limping near camp. The Steller's jays, blue jays, and gray jays warn me with squawking and jumping from branch to branch. Fox looks up as if to say, "Shh, quiet, I'm trying to blend in." I'm not concerned. He's wounded and limping, and he'll eat the mice and keep his distance if I don't invite him over. And a barking dog or fox near camp is a good alarm system from predators. I hardly see Mr. Cougar anymore. He's moved up to the high country where wild goats are abundant. The sounds of cougars in stress can send people fleeing the woods as though they've heard the cries of Sabe, Sasquatch. Now, here she talks about chaga. It grows on birch trees, but I can't talk about it, what it does, because YouTube doesn't like that. But she's talking about fungi and different trees here. Pemmican is a dry meat, traditionally bison, pounded into coarse powder and mixed with equal amounts of rendered fat and berries. Now, the word here for Saskatoon berries in Cree, Missaskwatomina, just something I looked up. Cranberries, wild berries, chokeberries, blueberries. They can last over a year, 5 years in cold storage. It's survival food, trail food, and real country food that'll give you energy. Moose meat, deer, or elk can also be smoked, dried, pounded into coarse powder for pemmican. She's got some nice drawings of rosemary, thyme, sweetgrass, sage, parsley, onions. The walls of the cabin are now full of shelves and hanging baskets. Each basket holds stores of food for the coming winter. Herbs for flavor and herbs for medicine, dried greens from dandelions and some into flour, wild rice and dried onions and garlic, wild mustard seeds, oats, wheat, are all dried and rock crushed for flour. Dried and powdered mushrooms, dried rose hips, and a multitude of berries, some dried whole and some powdered for pemmican. Oh, nice. There is a great deal of satisfaction and security knowing that you can make it through the cold months ahead. There's a small dugout cellar near the tree cache, and there's also some food stores for backup in case the winter drags on. This is where I'll hang a deer and butcher the meat for drying and smoking. It's almost time for hunting. A deer or two, or maybe a moose. That will get me through the winter for sure. There's still a lot of work ahead for hunting. Make sure the smokehouse is ready and well stocked with alderwood. She's got all her goods here in the baskets, and some smoked trout and sweetgrass, cedar, celery, tea, goldenrod, sorrel. Very nice. There's a great need for rendered fat in the winter. Keeps you warmer when you can eat a bit of fat, either in pemmican, or used to dry when you're frying dry meat and fish. I'll read that. If you don't have enough fat from deer, moose, or elk, then you might have to kill a large porcupine. They are fatty and will help you get through the winter. Some, it might be a beaver. It's all about finding the balance, food intake and health, and those wonderful cups of tea. Tea ring. Once winter arrives, it's all about keeping warm. Plenty of food stores, wood stores, and water until the snow falls. And we're now not winter yet, chapter 8. It's a beautiful fall morning. The colorful trees of gold and yellow are highlighted with orange hues. The colors of fall have moved down the mountains, and it's now flowing through the once little green valley. Red flashes from the maple trees keep step with all the other colors. It's a beautiful end to summer and a warm beginning of autumn. I'll ready my backpack for a canoe trip across the lake and a night or two under the stars. With any luck, I'll bag a deer, maybe a rabbit or two, and some quails. It's time to go hunting and complete the winter food stores. It's a traditional longbow made of wood. My aim was true, an offering of wild tobacco, giving thanks and recognizing the miracles all around me. It's never a great thing to kill another living being, from the smallest of creatures to the great that give their lives so that another might live. To only take what you need, grateful heart, mind, and soul, and to give thanks each time the animal meat comes between your hunger and survival. Again, it's about balance, the circle of life. I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and I'm part of that circle, one way or another, so surviving can become thriving. Yes. The smoker is full and smokes non-stop for 3 days and 2 nights. Most of this much-needed meat will keep me alive through the long, cold winter months ahead. Most of the meat is smoked and dried for stores, and a few choice cuts to cook over the fire, finishing off with a huge pot of soup that I will eat 3 times a day until it's gone, healthy and cleansing. I'll dry a few bones for soup another day, and extra dry some meat to later pound down for making pemmican with fat and berries for extra long stores and needed when on long hikes, canoe trips, and hunting. Some jerky will be hung from the cabin rafters and some stored in baskets. I'll continue to hunt throughout the winter, including rabbits, large bush hares, grouse, and porcupine, and maybe a fatty beaver. And their furs will keep my bed warm and cover window drafts. Moose hide for mittens lined with rabbit fur, with long braids of hide, each leather attached to each mitten and fed through the sleeves. An old trick for not losing a well-needed mitten on a winter trail. Fur-lined, ear-covering hats for winter winds and biting cold, and a smaller hat that lets me hear the forest but still keeps me warm. Hide and fur-lined boots and leggings finished off with thick moose hide coat, almost to my knees, with bits of fur around the collar, cuffs, and hem, with large antler toggles for buttons and plenty of pockets inside and out. It's heavy and warm. Time to restock the log pile for firewood. About 3 cords of wood in the small wood shed and another 2 cords of wood in the big wood shed. I'll haul in enough logs for about 3 more cords of wood. Then you'll know you'll have enough for winter. I don't want to end up like Sam McGee. It's an old story. Plus, if I had to make another large kill, I'll need some wood for smoking and drying the meat. Alder wood. The bush is no place for the lazy. Some planning must be done to live with freedom, or you won't make it. You know what I mean. Some old bushman or hunter will find your bones laying in your bed in your cabin, maybe because you froze to death or you ate a bad mushroom. And then there's talk here of different plants again and medicinal, and I won't talk about that on the channel. Another canoe paddle around the lake and maybe up the creek. More foraging and hunting and exploring. A bit more birch bark for a few more baskets and berries and herbs to fill those baskets. It feels good to get my needs met and then some. Mother Nature provides. You just have to get out there and find what you need, and only take what you need. Remember, each season can provide, and use that like a clock. Gauge each season for your needs and store up for winter. If a storm rolls in and you can't leave your cabin or camp for 5 or more days, you'll be okay, because you're always prepared for whatever might be around the corner. My paddle knows this water, comfortable like old friends, familiar and safe. The water is cool and calm. The canoe slides across the water smooth and quietly. The golden yellow and orange of fall is in all its splendor. It's a time of change, and my senses are taking it all in and loving it. The smell of leaves rotting on the ground, and squirrels running here and there with their winter stashes. Some stashes they never find again, and they replenish the forest. time for a hot cup of tea with honey. It will give me energy and warm my insides and my old bones. Well, not that old, LOL. Not a cloud in the sky. It's warm with a bit of wind, and that wind carries a chill. I'll make a fire and set up a lean-to for a night's sleep on the ground with some deer meat, greens, and bannock. That's the country meal you'll need after a day of paddling and foraging. I'll set a few snares and check them in the morning. Maybe a rabbit or two, or maybe a grouse. I have the bow ready for some small game, and the bobber just jumped, and if there's a fish on the hook, and that'll be great on the fire. Night comes early in the mountains, and the forêt shadows tell me today is done, and time for rest and sleep. A few more tree branches on the fire, and a few for the night. Tomorrow is another day. And I'm going to just shut the window a little bit because it's getting cold. All right. And what a day or morning it is. 3 rabbits in the snares. And with my slingshot, I got a couple of nice sized grouse. I know some people pull off the skin and wings and just cook and eat the breasts, but not me. I'm saving feathers for a pillow I'm making, and I don't mind plucking. Plus those little wings are delicious. It was a bit of work to clean and stretch the little rabbit furs that I'll make into a warm hat for the winter. 1 rabbit hanging whole, and 1 rabbit cut up and in the stew pot with wild celery and onions, and 1 rabbit roasting over the fire. It's always good to be back at the cabin and finding it just as I left it. As usual, the little songbirds welcomed me home. Even the limping fox came out to greet me with a loud squawk that sounded like a screech owl. It feels good to be missed. We all ate really well for the next few days. Fresh rabbit meat was a nice change from smoked meat and fish, and 1 grouse roasted over the fire and 1 grouse hanging, gutted whole for another day. Some more really nice pictures of the baskets, her utensils, things she used. Whenever I can get fresh meat instead of eating dried stores, it boosts my hopes for making it through winter, and it's a nice change of pace. I'll be doing more fishing trips too. Fresh meat is great and again keeps me out of the food stores. And once the lake freezes over, then I'll be ice fishing on the regular. In the meantime, I'm building a new lean-to kitchen near the lake shore and a little bit of ways from camp. My old kitchen was too close to the cabin. Less chance of attracting bears, hungry bears, and other predators. It makes camp feel bigger too. I can see the cabin from the new lean-to kitchen on shore, and I can see the kitchen from the cabin and the campfire. Just far enough, but not too far. Outdoor kitchen with bear and crow. Chapter 9. 2 bears are fighting in the distance, probably fighting over a female. It's that time of year when big game go into rut. Bear cubs are usually born in the den during winter while the mother bear is asleep. Breeding for next year's babies. Not much big game hunting time left. Good thing I got that deer and then another. That's a lot of dry meat and jerky. I'll be like the big old bear that doesn't hibernate. There's enough to eat and a beautiful snowy winter to explore and survive. Also a time for indoor chores and crafts, sewing socks and holes in pants, wood crafting, wood burning, bowls, spoons, all by the fireside with cups of tea. And plenty of time for writing and watching nature. And keep the fire going. Here's her little lean-to kitchen by the shore. There's a comfort, a place where we like to be. All our stuff is there. We know each path and where they lead, like a hub of a wheel, and they lead home. A path to the outhouse, a path to the woodsheds, a path to the lake shore, and back and forth from the outdoor kitchen and back to camp. And the path I took and my life took to get here, the little green valley. Very nice. My days are filled with gratitude and wonder, honing my skills and learning new ones, learning to listen and repeating bird songs. Chip, chip, trill, and tweeter. Tweeter and tweet, and more trilling. Knock, knock, knocking of the northern flicker woodpecker and the red-headed pileated woodpecker that makes large holes in trees that other animals take over for nesting. And my usual friends, sparrows, chickadees, swallows, the jays of all colors, crows, red robins, owls, ducks, wild turkeys, red squirrels and chipmunks, tamia, and many other, some that are here seasonally. And some birds stay all year, some migrate, always new visitors stopping by on their way here and there. Their songs are a daily musical with all the players, an extended orchestra that resets your energy and vibrations, keeping me in tune with nature, and feeding my soul with a new show that starts as soon as the sun comes up and continues throughout the day with intermissions, costume changes, and performers waiting in the wings for a return call and a familiar song. And the symphony plays on, nature's never-ending give and take in all its glory. Knock, knock, who's there? Me, and it's time for tea. I'll spend the rest of the day writing and drawing all that I see and listening to the forest music. I woke this morning a bit stiff and sore from all the work it takes to get ready for winter, but at the same time feeling ready and satisfied. A few stretches and I'm feeling ready for the day. I'll take that heavy canoe across the lake this morning, a bit more foraging, and enjoy these last few days of autumn. The canoe is ready to cross the lake. A few baskets for foraging, a fishing rod, some jerky and tea in case I spend the night on the far shore of the forest edge. Just talking about foraging rose hips, Labrador tea, sorrel. The water welcomes my paddle, like old friends shaking hands. It feels good to glide the canoe across the water, with ripples breaking the still silent water. The cooler days mean less black flies and good fishing. As I'm nearing the shore, I drop in a line, and within a few minutes, I've got a fat speckled trout that will be nice dinner. A few more casts and a few more fish. A good start to my little adventure. Plenty of animal tracks on the shoreline. Badger, deer, moose, coyote, ducks, turtles, raccoons, and a range of bear tracks. As I reach shore, I'm already giving thanks for the fish and the day ahead. One match strike and the sage funnel begins to smoke. Smoke that heals and cleanses as I pull it over me, from head to toe, washing my spirit and energy, ready for the day with a steady heartbeat and a smile on my face. I'm trying to draw all the animal tracks as best I can. The funniest tracks are the raccoon. He has funny little hands with extra tips, sensitive tips that help him feel food underwater like crayfish. And raccoons can climb and squeeze under and through almost any situation they encounter. Although Old Crow cawed and cried out all spring, summer, and autumn, he never got a call back. He circles the lake, crosses from end to end, postures on the top of tall pines, but no reply. And here he is on this side of the lake, talking to me as he hops from branch to branch on duty, watching every move I make, probably hoping for a morsel of dry fish. He's good company and will alarm if a predator is near. Worth a piece of dry fish at dinner. We're building a friendship, but I'm not making him dependent on me. And I like the little crow footprints. Talking about more plants and fungi and what they look like. Chicken of the woods, fairy ring, wild clover, yarrow, horse mushrooms, pine mushrooms. Tobacco. Yeah, poisons. It's been a long, busy day with great rewards. There's rabbits to be skinned and cleaned. There's grouse to be plucked and cleaned, and many baskets of foraged greens and berries for drying and preserving. But first a short rest and a hot cup of wild mint tea, reflecting on these past few months and the bounty nature has provided. How fortunate to be part of La Forêt, its flora and fauna, the daily songs of life, and the peaceful healing all around. Frying fish on a stick over the fire and a small piece of bannock washed back with tea. Crispy golden brown leaves crunch under my bare feet. A warm smell of rotting leaves fills the air like a warm sweater on a cool day. A slow walk in the meadow that was filled with wildflowers in the spring is now green and brown with long grass and tall trees line the edge. Leaves floating and sailing in slow motion like a colorful quilt waving in with the beautiful colors of autumn. It's a slingshot. A short nap in the meadow to recharge my spirit and enjoy the last days of Indian summer. Drifting into sleep with the forest when I hear a low drum beat and then singing that vibrates through the breeze. The ancestors, the elders, have left part of their spirits in the trees, the water, the air, the meadows, the animals, and the plants. Caretakers for Mother Nature and her seasons. The drums and the singing tell me we are still here. Giving thanks with an offering of sage and lavender and a sprinkle of tobacco, I load the canoe and take one more look back to make sure the small cooking fire is cold. I'll remember this day for a long time, and I'll write it down and read it once in a while. It will look very different here come winter. There's a few more paddles around the lake yet before the winter freeze comes. My cozy cabin is calling me from across the lake, and a warm fire tonight to take the chill off suits me just fine. It's almost dark when I land at the cabin shore. I'm greeted by the squawk of crow and the yipping of the limpy fox. My first thought is getting a fire going inside, but not until I unload the canoe and put it away. Warm soup on the cabin fire to warm me from the inside out, and a good sleep is just minutes away. I bring in a few more pieces of wood and a couple good-sized logs, stoke the fire, and then off to bed. Another unforgettable day will arrive with the sunrise, and I'll be rested and ready for whatever comes my way. And it says it's the end of chapter 10 and a half. As usual, morning came early with birds singing and a moose calling through the fog in the distance. Tree scraping and antler knocking echoes across the lake and down the valley. You can almost smell the musk in the air. Rut has begun. A time of breeding. A hunt for big game. The hunt for big game is over for another year. The harvest was plentiful. All has been provided. And great thanks to God and Mother Nature and the future of hope. I'll be sure to put the canoe up inside the woodshed in case a rut-crazed moose charges into camp looking for a mate or a fight. I spent the day around camp stacking extra firewood in piles between the trees, like a sturdy log fence. Some stacks are over my head, protecting outbuildings like the smoker, the outhouse, the woodsheds, and part of the outdoor kitchen area, almost fortified, and it'll help keep some snowdrifts back come winter snows. I've heard when rut-crazed moose or elk get sparring, they can tear a bush camp to pieces. Let's hope they don't get too close to this camp. Fox comes closer to the cabin these days. He's adopted a small piece of moose hide and carries it around like a security blanket. Sometimes chewing on it, and then he lays on it for a while. And then he chews on it some more. He's a little wonky and funny to watch, but I always remember he's a wild animal and I keep my distance. He's part of the little sanctuary, like a little protector and alarm system. I will miss him when he moves on, but if his wounded leg doesn't heal properly, he could become my permanent neighbor, and that's okay. I've grown to love him and his funny ways. And just like the Stellar's Jay and all his beautiful blues, and a mating pair and their 3 young'uns has made La Forêt their home. Regular daily visits, sometimes 1 or 2 at a time, and other times they all come at once, singing a chorus of caws and clicks, and even imitating other birds with fancy whistles and chirps. They love attention. Sometimes I try to ignore them, but watch their antics from the corner of my eyes. Other times I stop what I'm doing, make a cup of tea, and rest in my big wooden chair and watch and listen. It's glorious. Squirrels and chipmunks scurry around from tree to tree and on the forest floor, trying to find all their stashes of nuts and seeds. Once in a while they see each other or cross paths, and the fight starts. Little Tamia, the chipmunk, usually wins. It's a ferocious little creature that likes to hoard food and will fight to keep it. But many of their stashes have already been raided by the Stellar's jay and the crow and other squirrels and mice. Some nuts and seeds are never found and become trees and wild vegetation, rebuilding forests, meadows, and grasslands by happy accident. The loon's cry echoing across the lake reminds me that the cold nights ahead, and I start stacking chopped wood inside the cabin wherever there's room, and a bit on the porch near the chopping stump. I work it over in my head several times each week, counting the days until spring, how many meals will get me there, count on not getting much fresh food, but a blessing if you do. A hot beverage or hot soup does wonders through the winter months, and there will be plenty of cabin time to experiment with soup recipes, broth, and different teas. And of course, bannock to sop it all up. There's an extra chill in the air and it almost smells like snow. I woke to almost a foot of snow. It came early and it's already melting in the morning sun. This is chapter 11, Winter and Dreaming of Spring. Everything is covered in a clean white blanket, bright and new. The first snowfall reminding me of what's to come. Ready or not, each season arrives when the time is right and the forest needs to rest and sleep. The air is cold and crisp and clean. A few deep breaths, cleansing breaths, and stretching oxygen into my body and accepting the cold. It's here. Winter. Well, a taste of what's to come. And I surprise myself with feelings of excitement for a new season. No panic or fear, just excitement. Most of the snow melted before noon. It stayed cold even though the sun was shining. Usually clouds will keep the warmth in. in the little valley. A thick fog hung over the lake until half day, then it rolled through the valley with the sun. The coming days were framed with fog and light rain, and then the snow came, and it just kept coming. Cold, windy nights and bone-chilling mornings. Leaving the warm cabin is tough some days. I put a large log on the hot coals from the night, and it keeps the cabin warm enough when I need a break from the cold. My body is adjusting. It's my new winter environment. It has been many years since I lived with winter in the little green valley, and it's all coming back to me. Big fur-lined coat and rugged heavy boots. My feet are fighting the boots, and I'll be using moccasins and leggings when I can. Practical for the bush and warm, but the big boots are great for clearing the paths along with a makeshift snow shovel, but clumsy and heavy. The lake is beginning to freeze over, a bit of open water out towards the middle. Not safe to walk on. It will be a while yet before I can go out on the ice. I learned the hard way many years ago when I fell through the ice in a shallow, slow-flowing lake. A bit of hypothermia makes you cautious, and the loss of family loved ones that fell out of sight through the ice and gone. So we take more care on the ice. I was lucky that winter with a fire already aflame and a makeshift wigwam shelter after I climbed out of the water, soaked, frozen, dazed, shivering to the point of death. I staggered inside and took off the now frozen and stiff clothes and sat close to the fire for a long while. Hung up the wet, unthawed clothes, warmed up some moose meat soup. My head was pounding, and I kept reliving it all. Many people who live on the land and the water have their lives taken, usually from thin ice and flat, fast-flowing water. They get trapped under the ice and drowned. Some are found in the spring. Always listen to your elders. They know. They've already lived it. Experience doesn't have to be painful if you remember your teachings and your lessons and apply them to your everyday life. Like self-control, self-respect, and patience. I have reached my most important juncture in this life. To retreat into the woods, the mountains, and the lakes. And thin ice will not ruin me because I've learned life is too short for needless risks. I'll start on the sled tomorrow, a small sled to take me through the bush for checking on snares and eventually for ice fishing gear and bringing wood closer to the cabin. My old snowshoes need some repairs. They'll be well used when I'm pulling the sled around in deep snow. My animal friends have all adjusted to this new landscape, and the birds are busier than ever. They know what they're doing. I'm the one slightly unsure and cautious. I don't go far from the cabin these days. Everything I need is here or close by. It's important to not get injured, but it's also important to explore the area where you live and see what each season brings to those areas. My eyesight is dimmed a bit, so I'm thankful for the binoculars that allow me to watch the animals from afar It's nearing midwinter and the air is still and crisp, averaging about minus 20 degrees Celsius, as cold as minus 30 degrees Celsius when the wind picks up. It's not as cold as you think. It's a cold that lets you feel alive. The food stores have held out, and I harvest a rabbit now and again, and I'm thriving on the variety of food stores that were taught to me as a child and well into my adulthood. There are days when I hear the drums from across the frozen lake, like a beat that comes from the heart. I feel that I have the ancestors' approval and acceptance. No matter what year it is, I'm trying to live with some of the old ways and the old knowledge, and it feels right to reconnect with nature. So far, it's been a great year of discovery and recovery. Less than a year later, and all I was taught since childhood has come back to me in a flood of good memories. And I also remember that some memories come from our DNA. My health has completely changed. I even feel younger and more energetic. Getting away from all the pollution, the noise pollution, and the never-ending hum and buzz of electricity, and the noise never stops. People are unhappy, and most people are angry. No time for each other. I'm afraid people have lost their way, lost their minds and souls too. Colder weather has moved in, and snow is blowing from the frozen lake. Some snowdrifts are taller than me and look like jagged mountains. The wood stores have held out, and I'm thankful I had the strength to chop it all up and haul it back to camp before winter came. It's cozy and warm in the cabin, and I've finished many of my craft projects. Not many daylight hours, but that's okay. I rest more, I sleep longer, and my body heals itself. And of course, many cups of tea. I will most likely live out my days here in the little green valley. I'm already dreaming of spring, longer days, new adventures, and all that comes with living in the forêt. The end. Yeah, close the window. Well, that was the end of book 2. I'm very proud of this book. It was long overdue. My book 1 that became book 2 of 3. The continued story is in book 3, and it's already online in the shorter versions, and I'll soon read that as well in a long, full version. And I hope you enjoy these stories as much as I do. Tell me some of your trail stories in the comments section below, and like and subscribe to keep the stories coming. And ring the bell and you'll get notified of new posts. And once in a while, when I'm reading from the viewers, the story I read next could be yours. And until next time, be kind to nature and go into the woods as often as you can. Thanks for joining me for tea and this reading of Book 2, In Search of the Little Green Valley.